Dianna Russini dropped some more trade nuggets as we are 1 week away from the 2025 NFL trade deadline. A couple of these nuggets have already come to fruition. Roger McCreary has been traded. We will talk about that. The Steelers looking for receiver help. They signed someone, but could still be looking to do more. We will dive into it all here on 4 Verts. I got a challenge for you guys, though. We are less than 600 subscribers away from 13,000 here on the channel. Support's been awesome as we are kind of in year 2 of our coverage of the NFL and college football. Can we get to 13,000 by the trade deadline? That's about 80 subs a day on average between now and then. We're dropping daily content. If you love the NFL, if you love college football, if you want to be up to date on the trade market here, we're going to have you covered with real-time information. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, join the family here at 4 Verts and at Chat Sports. All right, is Brian Thomas Jr. a potential trade candidate? Dianna Russini says it's unlikely, but she did say that they have gotten some calls on him. And listen, you get a call and you get a big enough offer, who knows? Maybe you would consider a move like this, which would certainly be surprising. But at the same time, BTJ in year 2, him and Trevor Lawrence in this new Liam Cohen offense, it's just not clicking, right? I mean, the reception to target ratio last year, much more efficient, obviously much more effective with the volume, the yards per catch, the touchdowns, all that stuff. This year, it's not even 50% rate catches to targets. 27 catches on 55 targets, just has 1 touchdown this year, not quite as explosive either. For whatever reason, it's just been off. Now, I will also say, this would be pretty shocking, right? I think the Jags would only consider it if a team offered a first, because that's when they drafted him in the first round. I don't think you're trading BTJ for a 2 or less in year 2 of his contract after going for over 1,200 yards as a rookie. That would be, I don't know if reckless is the right word, but that would be pretty risky. Now, listen, if you get a first, especially from a team that might be picking in the top 15, I could understand the appeal, especially if you view yourself as not quite a contender right now, and if you don't think he's a good fit in this Liam Cohen system for whatever reason. I still think the kid is supremely talented. Like I said, I think this would be pretty risky, but I don't know. I don't think this is going to happen, but what if, like, the Giants said, we'll give you our first? That could be a top 10 pick. And then you have the first-round pick from the Browns, which is going to be very high. You have your own first-round pick, which even if they were to be a playoff contender, sneak in, it's not going to be like in the late 20s. It'd be early 20s, late teens. And then a Giants pick, that's pretty appealing if a team like that would offer you a 1. Don't think it's going to happen. I would be shocked if it did, but pretty interesting that Russini said that his name has been brought up. Who will be the best player traded before the deadline this year? I mean, right now it's probably either Joe Flacco or Roger McCreary, so it's been a little quiet up to this point. Let us know who you guys think that is. Maybe it's Quinnen Williams. The Jets did finally get their first one of the year, so there's some positive vibes up there in New York. Connor Hughes had mentioned that maybe they would trade him for a second. I don't think that's enough. Russini says that teams are showing interest, but that the Jets' asking price is massive. That tells me it's probably at least a 1. And, if I'm the Jets, I probably wouldn't trade him for less than a 1. Maybe I'd do like 2 2s or something like that. But he's still 27, 28 years old. He's a disruptive interior player who can play the run and the pass. Not having his best year, but he's still pretty damn good. And he's still young enough where I don't think you're just giving a guy like this away for some day 2 pick if you are the New York Jets. At the same time, you're 1-7. If you can get big capital for certain players, I still think Breece Hall is a guy they should move, especially coming off the game he just had. I mean, that probably helped his value even more. So keep an eye on the Jets in general. Don't really expect Quinnen Williams to get moved, but I would expect they move a piece or 2. What about Trey Hendrickson? Now, Russini dropped this nugget before the loss to the Jets, and I said it last week. All the reports, they're going to keep him now. They beat the Steelers, and it made sense. But I said, what if they lose to the Jets, though? Does that change things? Well, they did lose to the Jets. Before that, they said they're not planning on moving him. Does that change? And could it change, especially if they were to lose to the Chicago Bears on Sunday? If they lose to the Bears at home, they fall to 3-6. Baltimore is already the betting favorite in that division at 2-5. Their defense has played a lot better the last 2 games against the Rams and the Bears. They're getting Lamar Jackson back. They're getting healthy at the right time. and the Steelers, who are falling down to earth, and you beat them head-to-head, so that you might think you're still in it. But if you lose and fall to 3-6, this Joe Flacco magic starts to wear off a bit. The defense is still atrocious, even with Trey Hendrickson, who's dealing with a hip issue right now, so that could complicate things. Zach Taylor said he's day-to-day, so you would think they could still trade him if they wanted to. But if you lose Sunday, do you just hit the eject button on Trey Hendrickson? For 2 years now, he's kind of wanted out. This year, you came to a compromise to give him a pay raise, but he hasn't gotten that extension he's looking for. I think you would have to seriously consider it if you're Cincinnati, if you lose on Sunday. Probably not going to get a huge offer. Maybe it's like a third-round pick, but you clearly have shown you're not committed to keeping him long-term, so maybe a third-round pick is just, a decent return for a 30-year-old pass rusher who, hasn't helped your defense be elite by any means. Without him, you're a disaster. With him, you're still not good. Keep an eye on this. I think if the Bengals lose the Bears, I think the Hendrickson thing really kicks back into gear in those 48 hours leading up to Tuesday's deadline. All right, more trade nuggets to get into from Dianna Russini, but first, we are sponsored by PrizePicks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So, keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. It's very easy to navigate the PrizePicks app as you can toggle by sports and then specific stats as you start to surf through players and start to make your lineups. The way to make a lineup is simple. You pick 2 or more players and take more or less on their stat projections, and you qualify for a lineup. As long as it's not players only on one team. You got to have at least a second player on an additional team. Like you can't pick, 4 Bengals players or whatever. You'd have to have at least one player on another team. Here's a 3-player lineup example for this upcoming week. I like more on Caleb Williams, 230.5 passing yards, less on Chase Brown's rushing yards, then more on DeAndre Swift's rushing yards. So that's a 3-player lineup to win $120, $20 entry right there on PrizePicks. How you play is up to you. If you want to do a power play lineup like that where it's all or nothing, you can do so. Or you can do a flex play where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. So pretty freaking cool. Different options there with PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use our code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Okay, I mentioned the Roger McCreary thing. Russini said keep an eye on him to get moved, and he was. A little pick swap, 5th to Tennessee for McCreary and a 6th back to L.A., and there's a lot of teams that need corners, and there's a lot of buzz around that position of being moved. A lot of teams have suffered injuries at that position, so keep an eye on the cornerback market over the next week or so. Russini also mentioned, in addition to the Rams, by the way, obviously they already made their trade right there with McCreary, but the Ravens, Colts, and Lions, 3 other teams to monitor at the cornerback position. Some names that have been rumored, reported as potential trade candidates. Riq Woolen with the Seahawks. The report there is that they don't view him as a scheme fit long term, and since he's in a contract year, maybe they would move him. Alontae Taylor, nickel outside corner hybrid. Saints are obviously 1-7. He's in the last year of his deal, so they got to decide to see a long-term piece or do they move him. Rasul Douglas, veteran rental. Now, they lost Storm Duck yesterday, so they're pretty thin at corner if they trade Douglas. So, they play Thursday night. They wouldn't do anything before then, but keep an eye on him. Michael Carter, the slot with the Jets, and then Cam Taylor-Britt, who's kind of been in and out of the lineup. They benched him, then they started playing him again in Cincinnati again. Let's see what happens this weekend. If they lose to the Bears, they could ship him out and potentially Trey Hendrickson as well, like we mentioned. All right, just a little rapid fire. Some other nuggets from Dianna Russini. She reported that the Steelers want a receiver. Now, they did sign Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who obviously played with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay for multiple seasons. Is that their move? I still think they would be interested in a Jacoby Myers for the right price, or one of the Saints receivers, a Rashid Shaheed, a Chris Olave, a Brandon Cook. So I don't know if this is it, but clearly Pittsburgh wanted to be proactive and at least get somebody on board. Keep an eye on them to potentially still add another piece. I think they'd really like to get Jacoby Myers. Okay, the Broncos interested in some tight ends. Now, she didn't mention any names out there that could be available on the tight end market. Would a Kyle Pitts get moved? The Falcons are starting to fade a bit. Maybe he could be an option. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. Sean Payton would have a lot of fun with Kyle Pitts. I'm not sure who else could potentially potentially be available, but keep an eye on that position for Denver. She said the Bills interested in receivers and safeties. They have not been good on the back end this year. Their safety play has been really poor with Taylor, Rapp, DeMar Hamlin, and others. And then obviously the receiver room. We've kind of talked about this at times. Kind of just a mash unit of 3s and 4s, right? You know, you got like the Khalil Shakirs, Keon Coleman's, the Josh Palmer's of the world, the Curtis Samuels. Like, there's just no one that really stands out. Shakir's a nice player, but he's not a 1. I'd say he's an average 2, really good 3. So we'll see if they can find a piece that they like at that position. And speaking of the Saints, Russini had this last week that a potential extension could be in the works for Chris Olave, and she is maintaining that they are expected to keep him. Now, there's been other reports, Brandon Cooks, Rashid Shaheed. Keep an eye on those 2 names. You would expect the Saints to move one of these guys. Like, it doesn't make sense to keep all these players. Cooks, obviously a veteran player. He's not a long-term piece. Shaheed in the final year of his deal. If they keep him, they probably have to pay him. Do they want to do that? So those are 2 players, if they don't trade Chris Olave, that could and likely would be moved, at least one of those, before next Tuesday. All right, name a player you want your favorite team to trade for. Who do you want your favorite team to trade for before the NFL trade deadline? Drop it down in the comment section below. And I will say this, kind of feels like it could be quiet. You know, the NFL trade deadline in recent years has really picked up. It's been fun. It's been exciting. Schefter a couple weeks ago said, look for a few trades every single week leading up to November 4th. There was 3 that 1 week with Joe Flacco. There's only been 2 total in the last 2 weeks. So, we'll see if any movement happens today. And obviously, you would expect at least, a handful of moves right on deadline day or the day before, next Monday or Tuesday after we get through week 9 of the season. But I don't sense a blockbuster move coming. Feels like the big name maybe is like a Jacoby Myers. Jordan Schultz, right before we recorded this, mentioned keep an eye on Kayvon Thibodeau. That would certainly be a big one. We'll talk about that in another video. But other than that, Max Crosby's not happening. I guess Trey Hendrickson, like I said, that could reopen if they lose on Sunday. But feels like it could be relatively quiet. But we will continue to cover everything, all the buzz, the rumors, and obviously when trades go down here on the show. So keep us locked in. Hit that subscribe button here on 4Verts. We got you covered all things NFL and college football. Let's get to 13K before next Tuesday. I would appreciate it. My name is Harrison Graham. We will see you guys soon.